Hello and welcome to BYJU'S IAS. Let's take up the analysis of today's The Hindu newspaper by looking at an article from the front page of the Delhi edition. The State of Global Air 2020 report has been published by the US-based Health Effects Institute, and this report, which evaluates the impact of air pollution on health, has stated that air pollution has emerged as the biggest health risk in India that has contributed to around 1.67 million deaths in the year 2019 alone. The report clearly establishes that India has the highest per capita pollution exposure, and it stands at 83.2 micrograms per cubic meter. The report establishes that long-term exposure to outdoor air pollution, and especially household air pollution, exposes us to large quantities of particulate matter, which directly contributes to a significant increase in the occurrence of strokes, heart attacks, lung cancer, chronic lung diseases, and as well as neonatal diseases. Especially infants who are under the age of 1 month are particularly vulnerable, and according to the report, more than 116,000 infants have died in 2019 alone as a result of increased exposure to particulate matter such as PM 2.5. See, particulate matter is nothing but suspended aerosol particles in the atmosphere, which are microscopic in size, and they are released during the combustion of fossil fuels and solid fuels. The combustion of fossil fuels in vehicles and industries contributes to outdoor air pollution, and the combustion of solid fuel within the house, such as the burning of charcoal, wood, animal dung, etc., especially for cooking and heating, contributes to indoor air pollution, or also known as household air pollution. Despite the introduction of schemes such as PM UJWALA scheme, which has pushed the rural households towards LPG cooking gas in order to replace solid fuels such as charcoal, wood and animal dung, still many households, especially in the rural areas, they continue to rely upon such solid fuel, thereby significantly increasing the exposure of rural households to indoor air pollution. So when particulate matter of size PM 2.5 and even when ultra-fine particulate matter, which is of nanoscale size, when they are constantly inhaled by us over the long term, it directly contributes to a number of health risks. Studies have clearly established the links between air pollution and health conditions such as stroke, heart attacks, lung cancer, chronic lung diseases, and even neonatal diseases. So this being the impact of air pollution on human health, the State of Global Air report clearly establishes that India is one of the worst affected countries by air pollution because it registers the highest per capita pollution exposure in the world. This clearly makes air pollution one of the biggest health risks in India, which is directly contributing to millions of deaths every year. But however, the government of India has claimed that air pollution in the country is on the decline, especially over the last 3 years, because of the several initiatives that the government has taken to combat air pollution. But however, studies and available data clearly shows that these claims of the government are not entirely true, and the Indo-Gangetic Plain in particular is one of the worst affected regions in India, and it registers one of the highest levels of particulate matter, especially during the winter season. So essentially, it is the northern and western parts of India which are the most affected, and this is primarily because of the high population density in the region and also because of widespread industrial and agricultural activities in the region. So these findings are quite alarming, especially at a time when the world is dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic, which is known to affect the lungs and the heart. See, the link between air pollution and the severity of COVID-19 is still not entirely understood. But it is safe to assume that a pandemic which is primarily affecting the respiratory tract, the lungs and the heart is likely to have an aggravated impact in countries with very high levels of air pollution. So countries in South Asia and countries in sub-Saharan Africa are particularly vulnerable because these countries, including India, register one of the highest per capita pollution exposure. Now let's take up a column from page number 6, which evaluates the status of digital payments in India and how digital payments have transformed economic transactions in the country. See, over the last 4 to 5 years, the penetration of digital payment services has increased substantially in India thanks to the right kind of policy support provided by the RBI, the government and the banks. A number of digital payment startups and fintech companies have driven the widespread adoption of digital payments in the country, especially post demonetization. So in this context, it's very important to understand how digital payments have evolved in India. See, the adoption of digital payments has been nurtured by the RBI since the 1990s. Back in 1998, the RBI brought out a research policy paper which evaluated the advantages of adopting digital payments. Based on this thrust given by the RBI, the RTGS system of payment and settlements was introduced in 2004. RTGS, or Real-Time Gross Settlement Payment System, allowed for the settlement of large value transactions with great reliability and reduced risks to the financial system. It also provided for faster settlement of payments, thereby broadening and deepening the financial market in the country. Then later, the NEFT, or the National Electronic Funds Transfer, was introduced in order to support retail payments. So the introduction of RTGS and NEFT payment system promoted the usage of online banking or net banking, thereby simplifying economic transactions in the country. Then in 2005, the RBI released a vision document on payment system which spoke about the need for an umbrella payment system that could bring all types of digital payment services under one single organization. This vision document of the RBI paved the way for a major policy change, and in 2009, the NPCI, or the National Payments Corporation of India, was born. The NPCI was established as an umbrella organization which could bring all digital payment services under one institution, and it was established as a not-for-profit organization based on the Swedish model. The NPCI was established by 10 leading banks of India with the support of the RBI, and over the years it has successfully created a superhighway for all digital payments in the country. It has seamlessly integrated the RTGS and NEFT payment system along with the introduction of new types of payments such as IMPS and, more importantly, the UPI. Over the last 10 years, this superhighway created by the NPCI for digital payments has enabled faster and reliable payments. It has made it easier to carry out large volume transactions, and it has also reduced the associated financial risks, and it has made it all the more difficult to pull off financial scams and frauds. In fact, the NPCI model has become so successful that recently the Bank for International Settlements has endorsed the NPCI model, and it has recommended it as a standard model to be followed by other countries. But of late, a couple of challenges have emerged in the digital payment sector. One, since the NPCI model has become very successful, a number of experts are pushing to transform the NPCI from a not-for-profit organization into a for-profit organization in order to make the institution more competitive. But the writer cautions against this proposal because, according to him, if the National Payments Corporation of India is turned into a for-profit organization, then it increases the cost of transaction, thereby affecting the access and affordability to digital payments, especially in the rural areas and semi-urban areas. So this will directly affect the reach of digital payments in the country, and it will not only increase the cost of transaction for the consumer, but it can even affect the profit margin of fintech companies and as well as the various startups that have come up around the digital payment ecosystem. The second hurdle is a government policy that was brought out in the 2020-21 budget. In this year's budget, the government has prescribed zero merchant discount rate. Merchant discount rate, or MDR, is nothing but the rate or transaction charges that is paid by merchants such as Paytm, Google Pay, etc. to scheme providers such as NPCI who provide digital payment products such as RuPay, UPI, etc. And since NPCI is a not-for-profit organization, this merchant discount rate eventually reaches the banks, thereby helping them generate revenue out of these digital transactions. But in this year's budget, the government has prescribed that merchant discount rate should be zero, meaning that the merchant discount rate should be taken away. But this has been prescribed only for NPCI products such as RuPay and UPI. Whereas other providers of digital payment products such as Visa, MasterCard, etc., they should continue to pay a discount rate to the banks, and this dichotomy in the policy ecosystem has allowed banks to switch to Visa and MasterCard based transactions instead of relying upon RuPay or UPI of the National Payments Corporation of India. See, the reason why the MDR has been made zero for RuPay and UPI services is because the government wants to reduce the transaction cost for the customers and the merchants. But since this does not apply for Visa and MasterCard, banks have conveniently shifted to these payment service providers in order to make monetary gains. So the writer says that this policy of the government that is focused only on the products of NPCI has created a dichotomy in the digital payments ecosystem, and hence he is calling upon the government to take corrective action and provide a level playing field for the NPCI. So essentially, these two hurdles have become the potholes on the digital payment superhighway that has been successfully developed by the National Payments Corporation of India, and hence he is calling upon the Indian government and the RBI to extend the right kind of support to the NPCI so that there is a rational pricing structure in place which would further deepen the penetration of digital payment services in India. Next, in a column on page number 7, the writer provides a beautiful argument to explain how the caste system in the Indian society has permanently chained the lower castes to sanitation work. The focus of this column is the inhuman practice of manual scavenging, which is still widely prevalent in India. See, manual scavenging is nothing but the manual removal of human excreta. Historically, the Indian society has assigned this degrading task only to the lower castes such as the Dalits. Today, the manual scavengers that you come across in your cities and villages who clean the manholes, sewage lines and septic tanks, they have not taken up this sanitation work by choice, and instead it is a forced choice that has been imposed upon them by the Indian society. This inhuman practice of manual scavenging, which continues to remain prevalent, has compromised the dignity and safety of the manual scavengers, and it has completely dehumanized their sufferings. Every now and then, we keep reading news articles which reports the deaths of manual scavengers while they were cleaning manholes, sewage lines and septic tanks. So this clearly shows that the social evil of manual scavenging has not been completely abolished despite the existence of a couple of legislations. See, the problem of manual scavenging became all pervasive in the modern world because of the widespread usage of dry latrines. Dry latrines are the toilets which are not connected to the drainage system, and hence this requires the human excreta to be manually removed. So since many decades and centuries, this task of manually removing human excreta from dry latrines has been assigned to the lower castes in our cities and villages. Post-independence as well, no government had cared to take any action on this, and it took a massive civil society movement which took root in the 1990s to make the government sit up and take notice of this social menace. So in the 1990s, the civil society and NGOs led a collective movement against manual scavenging, and they brought sufficient pressure on the central and the state governments, and this led to the 1993 legislation which prohibited the construction of unsanitary dry latrines, and it also abolished the employment of manual scavengers. But despite the enactment of this law, the problem of manual scavenging was not resolved, and the practice continues even to this day. In fact, until recently, this inhuman practice was being encouraged and followed by the state and its institutions itself. Until the 1993 Act was introduced, state governments were recruiting manual scavengers to carry out sanitation work, and even the Indian Railways was notorious for employing manual scavengers to carry out the sanitation work on railway lines and in railway stations. After this act was passed, the construction of dry latrines did come down, but the employment of manual scavengers did not come to an end. So the poor enforcement of this act led to a massive social movement which began in 2003, known as the Safai Karmachari Andolan. This was again a civil society led movement, and a PIL was filed at the Supreme Court to highlight the problem of manual scavenging. After the intervention of the Supreme Court, the government carried out a survey in 2013, and this survey clearly established that dry latrines still persisted in the country and manual scavenging was still being practiced despite the existence of this law. So this civil society movement, followed by the intervention of the Supreme Court and the results of the 2013 survey, finally motivated the government to bring in another legislation in 2013, which not only prohibited the employment of manual scavengers, but also provided for their rehabilitation. As a result of these laws, the construction of dry latrines has more or less come to an end in the country. But unfortunately, the practice of manual scavenging is still prevalent, and manual scavengers are still employed to clean the few remaining dry latrines and also to clean the manholes, sewage lines and septic tanks. In fact, it is not just manual scavenging which has been forced upon the lower caste such as Dalits. Sanitation work in general, such as cleaning, clearing of dead bodies, etc., they have been assigned to the lower caste, that is the Dalits. Even during disasters and even during the COVID-19 pandemic, it has been noticed that people from the lower castes are pushed to carry out unsanitary tasks such as the clearing of dead bodies. So it becomes very evident that manual scavenging is nothing short of a social evil because of its inherent connections with the caste system. The writer highlights how it is only Dalits of the Nilgiri district who are employed as manual scavengers and sanitation workers by the local administration. And he also provides real examples to show how these workers are mistreated by not allowing them entry into government offices and public spaces and by not providing them with vehicles for transportation. This is largely because of the stigma that is associated with this work, and this social boycott of the Dalits who are involved in manual scavenging and sanitation work directly affects their dignity and well-being. Unfortunately, even the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, which launched a nationwide campaign on sanitation and open defecation, does not address the problem because it does not focus on manual scavengers. So the writer says that, considering the magnitude of the problem, the only way in which the dignity of these workers can be restored is by assuring them labor rights and labor welfare. The writer says that, just like any other worker, a sanitation worker or manual scavenger should be treated with utmost dignity, and they should be provided all the welfare measures such as safety equipment in order to protect them from the toxic gases and the introduction of mechanized equipment to clean human excreta, and more importantly, the provision of social security in order to provide these workers with insurance and other benefits. Next, we have an article on page number 14 that deals with the PLI scheme or the Production Linked Incentive Scheme. If you remember, on the 15th of October, we spoke about the PLI scheme in detail, which has been provided for few select sectors such as mobile manufacturing. Similar production linked incentive schemes have been extended to other sectors such as manufacturing of medical devices, pharmaceuticals, etc. These production linked incentives given to few sectors has promoted growth in these industries, and hence, based on this success, the government has decided to extend the production linked incentive scheme to 8 more sectors. This is expected to give a significant boost to manufacturing because these production linked incentives are provided based on the output, that is based on the manufacturing of goods. So since it is an outcome and output oriented scheme, it is expected to boost production and manufacturing in these 8 additional sectors. Now let's take up the practice questions for today. What does COVIRAP, recently seen in news, refer to? An indigenous vaccine for COVID-19 being developed in India by the ICMR, a low-cost COVID-19 testing device developed by IIT Kharagpur, a global alliance formed by the WHO to develop an effective vaccine against COVID-19, a mathematical forecasting model developed by the Johns Hopkins University that is accurately forecasting the global spread of COVID-19. The correct answer is option B. This question has been asked because we have a related article on page number 1. According to this article, IIT Kharagpur has developed a low-cost testing device for COVID-19 known as COVIRAP. This has been indigenously developed and it has been approved by the ICMR for commercial usage. Yesterday we spoke about the Feluda test developed indigenously by CSIR and being commercialized by the Tata Group, and on similar lines, COVIRAP is expected to provide very accurate results comparable to RT-PCR testing. But through COVIRAP, the results can be brought out in just 1 hour at a much cheaper cost as compared to RT-PCR testing. Now let's take up the next question. Which of the following statements best describe Annie Besant? She was a British socialist, theosophist, women's rights activist, writer and philanthropist. She was an ardent supporter of both Irish and Indian self-rule. She was an educationist and her contributions included being one of the founders of the Banaras Hindu University. Or D, all the above. The correct answer is option D, all the above. See, Annie Besant was a socialist. She was a key figure in the Theosophical Society. She played a key role in promoting gender rights, and she was also a writer and a philanthropist. She supported self-rule or home rule for both Ireland and India, and she was one of the founders of the Home Rule League in India. As an educationist, she played a key role in the establishment of the Banaras Hindu University as well. So option D is the correct answer. This question has been asked because the 100 years ago article from page number 7 makes a reference to the contributions of Annie Besant. Next, in the same section, the 50 years ago article makes a reference to the intense rivalry and hostility between India and US during the 1970s. Just the other day, when we spoke about the liberation of Bangladesh war, I had explained in detail how then US President Richard Nixon and his National Security Advisor Henry Kissinger shared personal hatred towards India and especially towards Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. This racial bias held by the US President and his NSA played a key role in determining American involvement in the 1971 liberation of Bangladesh war. This article explains how Indira Gandhi was given a very hostile welcome in the United States when she traveled to New York to participate in the 25th anniversary commemorative session of the United Nations General Assembly. After Indira Gandhi landed in the US, the Nixon administration gave a very hostile reception to the Prime Minister, thereby clearly indicating the growing hostility and rivalry between India and US in the 1970s. Now let's take up the next question. The State Election Commission finds a mention in the Constitution under which article? The correct answer is option B. It has been mentioned under Article 243K and Article 243ZA. See, these articles deal with elections to panchayats and elections to municipalities respectively. These articles provide for the establishment of a state election commission which will enjoy superintendence, direction and control over the preparation of electoral rolls and the conduct of all elections to the panchayats and municipalities. This state election commission is headed by a state election commissioner who is appointed by the governor of the state. In many ways, the State Election Commission is quite similar to the Election Commission of India constituted under Article 324 of the Constitution. Under these provisions, the conditions of service and the tenure of the State Election Commissioner has been protected because these terms and conditions cannot be varied to his disadvantage after his appointment. And more importantly, the State Election Commissioner can be removed from his office only in a manner and on the same grounds as that of a judge of a high court. But despite this constitutional protection, the State Election Commission has often faced issues with respective state governments. Because unlike the Election Commission of India, state election commissions do not enjoy complete independence and their functioning has often been highly politicized. Recently, we have seen how the Andhra Pradesh government brought in an ordinance to remove the State Election Commissioner, but later this unconstitutional removal was set aside by the High Court. So we have an article on page number 8 in which the State Election Commissioner of Andhra Pradesh has again approached the Andhra Pradesh High Court to demand the government to continue providing budgetary support and funds based on the request of the State Election Commission in order to ensure the timely conduct of elections to the local panchayats and municipalities. Now let's take up the next question. Which of the following statements are correct? The historic Brihadishwara Temple is located in Belur, Karnataka. It is located on the banks of river Kaveri. It was built by Raja Raja Chola I and the temple is a part of the UNESCO World Heritage Site known as the Great Living Chola Temples. Amongst the given statements, the first statement is incorrect, so option D is the right answer. Because see, the Brihadishwara Temple is located in Tanjore in Tamil Nadu, not in Belur, Karnataka. The Brihadishwara Temple is a historic temple located in Tanjore, built by the Chola dynasty, and it is located on the banks of the Kaveri river. This question has been asked because according to this article, a former IAS officer, Mr. Venkatraman, has passed away and he was considered as a leading authority on Chola history and on the contribution of Cholas to temple art and architecture. Now let's take up the next question. Which of the following statements are correct? The Blue Dot Network is a US-led collaboration with India, Australia and Japan that supports private sector-led infrastructure development and financing opportunities. It has been perceived as a counter to China's Belt and Road Initiative. Amongst the given statements, the first statement is incorrect, so option B is the right answer. See, the Blue Dot Network was a recently proposed initiative that has been taken up by the United States in collaboration with Australia and Japan. As of now, India is not a part of it. It was proposed in November 2019 on the sidelines of the 35th ASEAN Summit, which was hosted by Thailand. During this summit, the International Development Finance Corporation of the US tied up with the Japanese Bank for International Cooperation and the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade of Australia to jointly launch the Blue Dot Network. The objective of the Blue Dot Network is to evaluate proposed infrastructure projects around the world, especially in developing and underdeveloped countries, and rate those projects by providing them with a blue dot based on the ability of the recipient countries to fulfill a set of standards and principles as prescribed by US, Japan and Australia. For example, the evaluation of these projects will be done on the basis of environment friendliness, sustainability, etc. And once the project receives a blue dot from the coalition of these three countries, then it will motivate private lenders to provide the required capital and financing to execute these projects. This question has been asked because of a related article on page number 10. See, yesterday we spoke about the inclusion of Australia under the Malabar exercises. This decision of India has been welcomed by the senators in the United States, and they have called upon India to consider joining the Blue Dot Network in order to counter China's Belt and Road Initiative and its economic aggression in the region. Now let's take up the next question. India has established a 2+2 dialogue with which of the following countries? USA, Japan, Australia. The correct answer is option D. India has established a 2+2 dialogue, that too at the ministerial level, with the United States, Japan and Australia. See, the 2+2 dialogue is a unique diplomatic format wherein the defense ministers and foreign ministers of two countries jointly interact in order to discuss all relevant foreign policy and national security issues. This question has been asked because according to this article on page number 13, the US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo along with the US Secretary of Defense are traveling to India for participating in the upcoming India-US 2+2 dialogue. Now let's take up a practice question from the 2016 prelims paper. Consider the following pairs. On one side, we have some terms which are frequently seen in news, and on the other side, they have been matched with their possible origin. Annex 1 countries has been matched with Cartagena Protocol, Certified Emission Reductions or CER has been matched with the Nagoya Protocol, Clean Development Mechanism or CDM has been matched with the Kyoto Protocol. The correct answer is option C, 3 only. Only the third option has been correctly matched. In fact, all the three given terms, they belong to the Kyoto Protocol under the Climate Change Convention. So in the context of this question, I would like to give you a small exercise. Please read a little more about the Cartagena Protocol and Nagoya Protocol because both are very important for your prelims and mains from the environment and ecology section. Now before we move on to the mains practice questions, I would like to issue a small clarification with regard to yesterday's practice question dealing with the Central Information Commission. See, yesterday I had incorrectly mentioned that the term of the Chief Information Commissioner is 5 years. See, this was correct earlier because earlier, that is prior to 2019, Chief Information Commissioner and the Information Commissioners of the CIC, they used to enjoy a term of 5 years. But last year, through an amendment to the RTI Act, the government has reduced the term to 3 years. Finally, let's take up a couple of mains practice questions. The first question, elaborate on the kind of health risks associated with severe air pollution in the Indian context. The second question, the widespread adoption of digital payments in India is transforming the nature of economic transactions. In this context, identify the hurdles and the way forward. Kindly write an answer to these questions and post your answers in the comment section below. So this concludes our discussion for the day. Thanks for watching.